and welcome to Mud and Blood, a podcast dark and grim. And welcome to Valley of Blood, our newest actual play, using the Warlock system set within my own setting. This campaign has been the cursed result of 2020. No less than 3 failed attempts at forming groups and starting games were made for this actual play spot, yet due to the year that's been, things just kept falling over. Deadlines loomed, and I had to put together a party of players and get a game that could be easily managed for everyone, on short notice, and flexible enough for sandbox play. And, well, here we are. Now, full disclosure, this campaign is a slow burn. Don't expect much in the way of high action from session to session, or a lot of dice rolls. Instead, expect a moody sandbox investigation, largely improvised and pulled together, that builds towards dark revelations and outcomes. Consider yourselves warned. It was a lot of fun to play, and I hope it's a lot of fun to listen to. Any documents relevant to the episode will be shared in the show notes below. So, some context for the story ahead. Our party has been gathered on behalf of the state of Strussland to investigate the disappearance of an important missionary priest in the bordering nation of Svalsing. The characters must walk the tightrope of sensitivity to the nation that is teetering towards civil war, as well as efficiently trying to find their missing man, and all of the complications that come therein. Our players are Charlotte, playing Veronica, the assassin, Sean, playing Lorenz, the diplomatic advisor, and Simon, playing Victor, the mercenary captain. We join them as we sail into Svalsing, so get comfortable, put your feet up, and enjoy the show. A crisp spring breeze blows in off the mountains around you as water laps along the sides of your riverboat as you make your way north through the nation of Svalsing. It has been a number of days since you've left the fresh salt spray of the sea and made your way inland, with picturesque sort of hamlets and villages passing by as you sort of lazily make your way along the river Kyrgyzstan. It would be a rather sort of idyllic or beautiful journey were it not for the occasional sign of unrest gripping this small valley nation, with the occasional hamlet burnt out on the banks of the river, and the constant sign of sort of war scarring the landscape. Technically, the nation in which you now find yourself in is at an uneasy peace. However, as you all know, due to the reason you're here, such peace are largely temporary and fragile in nature. As your boat sort of makes its way north, you finally see, nestled along the banks of the river, your destination, the capital of Svalsing, Sinistad, a strange town of a myriad of sort of styles and corruptions, showing the colonial past of this nation, or rather its imperialistic past even. As squat, low stone walls hug the eastern banks, whilst a slum just overwhelms and stains the western bank ahead of you. Standing at the prow? What's the front of a boat? It's the prow, right? Bow. Yeah. At the bow of the boat. we have Victor Erkenkrantz looking upon this as the sun, being later in the morning, is hanging over the mountains to the east, is blocked out by a towering figure standing next to the squat mercenary captain. And Victor does not need to look to see who this is, as Maynard's typical upper crust voice sort of cuts through. Look at that, old boy. You can smell them from here.
You're always going on about that. That's salted fish, not people. But you wouldn't know that, would you, Maynard?
If you say so, old boy. Look, when we get there and we get to where we're going, you be a good little soldier and you follow your betters, yeah?
Well, if the gold flows, the fortunate few will do their duty. But keep it flowing. I sort of look at him in a very... He Maynard will know that this is not something he approves of, but he's not going to say it because we're going to have to work together.
Yeah, he smiles at you knowingly, and then pats you on the shoulder in an overly affectionate way. In a way that's
patronizing, man. Look at that.
Yeah. And he sort of wanders off. What is everyone else doing as we make our way inland, as we're approaching where you've been going? At this point, the journey has been weeks. You made your way from inland in your own nation, Strussland, and then boarded a boat, and you've been sailing probably about 14 days at this point to get to where you are. And within the hour, it looks as if you'll be to where you're going. So, bearing that in mind, why doesn't everyone sort of take a moment to introduce our characters through, I guess, their actions? We'll start with Lorenz. What is Lorenz up to? Lorenz?
Lorenz. He's not a lozenge, he's Lorenz. Lorenz Tauschen is probably towards the back of the boat, towards where the bridge would be, in a position where he's looking out over the railing, out across at the water, at the destruction and the general populace. He's got a troubled look on his face because that's typically what he looks like. He's in his mid-30s, very weathered face. He's got a broken nose at some point. He's dressed in good quality clothes, but it's not ostentatious like Maynard, whatever. Already get the name. Maynard. Unlike him, how he would wear clothes as a member of nobility, Lorenz is, he's pretty low key. He looks like he's got wealth, he just doesn't display it. He's sort of nervously tapping the guardrail and he looks cross. And that exchange between Victor and the captain, he probably overheard some of it. And when Maynard wasn't looking, if Victor cast a look towards Lorenz, you would have seen him roll his eyes in sympathy for dealing with that sort of thing, because it's probably been that way for the last two or 3 weeks or however long we've been together. But otherwise, he's just watching, his eyes just darting about the deck and onto the shore, nervously tapping the railing as he's awaiting, turning up at his destination.
Absolutely, yeah. And as you get closer and closer to the city, as you've made your way, you've gone through a number of larger towns to get here, and as you've gotten closer to the city, the signs of devastation, which isn't, it's not ever prevalent, but there is the occasional burned hamlet and things like that. they seem to be older, whereas down south villages are still smoking. Up here, any uprisings were put down much more recently. However, it's an understandably tense situation as you're sailing north.
He's definitely taking note of that.
Okay. And what of Veronica?
So, as we're still on the boat getting closer to our destination, she would be leaning against one of the masts and looking towards the shoreline itself. If there was any cargo boxes beside it, she would be sitting on that. And you'd expect her to be sitting on there just taking a whetstone to one of her knives that she keeps with her for utility purposes. Just not really thinking about too much, just mindlessly passing the time. You would see her sitting there with a blue doublet with a white undershirt, which covers her arms. Red hair that kind of comes down to her shoulders, which is constantly curly from the humidity of the ocean. Aside from that, she freely interacts with a crew, whether they are part of the crew or part of her crew. She'll have pleasant words to say with the ship's crew to help keep their spirits decent as they make their way across the ocean. She may have been known once or twice during the voyage to get a little bit rowdy with some of the crew after dark, as the ale barrels were tapped. Any way that she could make friends, which could potentially become useful later on down the road.
Absolutely, yeah, no, that's all good stuff. The crew, this ship is by and large a merchant ship. They are carrying the usual sort of wares, many of which are. This is something Sean's character would know, especially being part of the diplomatic corps, is that there is a trade relationship between your nation and this one, which is somewhat propped up on your side in an effort to try and win over the allegiances and loyalties of this nation. And this is one of those vessels where they're turning up with supplies, which more or less go straight into the coffers of the local nobility.
Bribes, essentially. Bribing the locals, yeah.
Yeah.
Bloody imperialistic thing to do.
Very much, yeah.
It's the British in India.
The crew is all made up of various people from various regions within Strassland, where you came from. But they would certainly enjoy the company. Someone to drink with. They're normally, when they have chartered sort of travels, they have to be on their better behaviour, so a chance to sort of let their hair down, so to speak, would certainly be appreciated. And they sort of regale you with tales which are largely overblown and exaggerative, as their lives as traders aren't actually that interesting very much at all. They make more or less the same journey backwards and forwards constantly.
In reply to their stories, I would give them a few of my own, obviously toned down a little bit. But,
I was going to say, do the stories you tell, are they tall tales or are they real tales?
A little bit of both. A little bit of fact with a little bit of fiction.
Cool. Now, also part of your party, but more or less having kept to themselves the whole time, you have Bishop Mathis Hartman, and he has an entourage of younger initiates and things who are sort of come around and see to his needs. He is more or less kept to himself below deck the entire time. The general impression was that he is not a particularly good sailor. However, you are soon sort of getting to the point where you're riding past the skirting wall of the city. as described earlier, the city is walled on one bank. All along the eastern side of it, there is stone walls sort of surrounding the city, and then on the western bank appears to be more or less a slum. Just rows and rows of housing that has clearly been built over at some point over the last couple hundred years of occupation, but it's very dilapidated, it's falling apart, it's quite substandard, and then around that is just shacks. There is docks over there in the sort of more built up part of the slum, and you can make out a quite modern looking and new, rather opulent, it actually stands out as a jewel amongst the stain, as it were, an opulent looking cathedral, noticeably in the style of your homeland, mounted there amongst the filth of the common man, as it were. But you make your way past the skirting wall to your east, and you sail up towards the docks and the old town, which is the walled part of town. Here the docks are busy. It's about as busy as you can expect for a river port, as it were, a river dock, and it's seemingly, like as you come, you can see that that word is spreading of your arrival as a reception party, as it were. It seems to be forming at the dock as you approach, of a number of soldiers and someone that has the stench about them, or the look about them, of a bureaucrat just waiting for your arrival. The boat boards, well, it sort of comes up and ties itself away onto the docks, and then a gangplank is fed over to allow people to sort of walk up onto the docks. And without waiting, the soldiers are straight on and searching / unloading the supplies. It would stand out especially, actually, to Victor that there is a number of armed soldiers lingering around the docks in groups here and there, just having a presence, right? In a way that you're used to seeing in a city that's occupied or something like that. They don't have any. They're clearly not a state army. They're clearly mercenaries, as they have a range of styles. Some of them more flamboyant, like yourself. Some of them have bright red sashes tied across their chests, and others sort of clearly more affordable and subdued. You can generally tell by their look and appearance that culturally they are from the east, likely from the Nissian Empire elsewhere. They tend to.
So what sort of style is that of clothing does that look like? What does Eastern wear look like?
I think very Slavic. They have a very Slavic appearance about them. Very rough-looking men. Quite sort of like, you can tell facial hair is very much in fashion with them. Whilst where you come from, it's big shaped sculpted beards and things like that. There it's clearly more moustaches and things are in style. Lots of heavy woolen clothing versus your more sort of colourful and bright sort of silks and things. That said, there is definitely elements of flash amongst them. But yeah, furs and wools and sort of that sort of stuff is definitely quite common with them. And their uniforms tend to have a less garishly opulent look about them, and they tend to be a bit more utilitarian in their design. But definitely with personal flashes about them. And by no means is that a one-size-fits-all. There is a range amongst them that some of them you can tell of clearly wanting to look a bit like the Landsknats, much like Victor, whereas others are sort of, imagine stereotypical Russian, sort of Cossack mercenary, and you're halfway there.
They've all got long pipes. Like that portrait from when they wrote the Tartars or whatever wrote that reply to the Sultan. That's what that's what you're going for. Yeah. As far as equipment's concerned, for the most part, they're sort of standing around leaning on halberds and pikes,
You occasionally see handgunners standing about the place as well. There's obvious reasons why they're hanging around the docks. Obviously there is value here, and there's value to be protected. The bureaucrat sort of introduces himself to you all, makes himself known that he is from the local embassy, and that he has been told to extend every courtesy to you all. A messenger arrived several days ago via like urgent horse, I guess, you know, the old courier station, so they used to ride from horse to horse to horse over the mountains, and has gotten word that you're on your way. So they have to extend every courtesy and to make themselves useful and available to you as you come to the docks. Is there anything in particular that we're looking for? Is there anything in particular that we think our characters would notice that you want me to paint the picture? I'm sort of presenting the city to you all as a canvas, so feel free to tell me what it is, what colours that your character would be painting that canvas with, or looking to paint that canvas with, and I'll let you know what the character would or would not notice.
How active you've described there's a lot of mercenary presence in the dock. How active are they? Are they just watching? Is there incidents happening? You know, are they being rather brutish to the populace, or are they more or less just there? Like, what's the level of policing right now?
Plainly, it is security. They are just here being a presence. They actually seem quite at home here for the most part. They're sort of, you know, you get the impression that the dock workers here appreciate their being here. You notice that there is no beggars or anything like that, however. It is very much a functioning dock, and it is very much clean of any non-necessary staff. But for the most part, the rather wealthy sort of merchant vessels and things that are here, that are bringing goods on and off the docks, seem to be, you know, quite appreciative of being able to do so without harassment.
Lorenz is also trying to pick up if there's anyone, like, so there's this party waiting for them, the welcoming committee. He's also trying to pick how much attention's getting paid to them, because obviously there's going to be attention paid, but he's trying to assess whether it's dark looks, whether it's, oh, that's interesting, something official's happening, or, you know, whether it's just no one's paying any attention.
How about we leave
First roll
to the dice? Yeah.
Nice.
So we'll make it a spot test. So because we're using, for those at home, we are using Warlock, which we have sort of bent and twisted for our own setting here. The way a test works in Warlock is you roll a d20, you add your skill to it, and you try and get over 20, the total. In this case, we'll just make it for you, your spot and streetwise are the same. So we'll just go streetwise. That's 12.
1d20, 23.
23? For the most part, there's not a hell of a lot of interest. That said, you do notice that a few of the guys standing around with the red sashes, as you notice them, they stand out more. They are clearly in the finer armor that you have here. All have breastplates with a red sash tied across their chest, sort of, you know, from over their left shoulder and down around their right hip. And they have like pole arms which are of an unusual design to you. They look like almost like a I guess a glaive, like it's like a large pole arm with a blade on it, but the blade is hooked in such a way so that, yeah, imagine the pole arm going up, and then it's like an axe blade sort of curving off the side, and if the pole arm was to be stood upright, so the butt of the pole is on the ground and the blade up in the air, there would be like a hook in the design of this pole arm. And you notice they all also have handguns strapped to their back as well. And it's a bit of a shorter pole arm, unlike the halberds and pikes, which are well over 6 foot tall for the most part. Well, the pikes especially, halberds not so much, but these are a bit shorter. They're maybe 4 foot. in design, so sort of halfway between a two-handed axe and a polearm. Some of them appear to be watching you. Not particularly hiding it either, but they're observing who's coming off the vessel and clearly paying attention, more so than everybody else. You get the impression that everyone else here they're just on duty. They're where they've been told to stand. They're doing what they've been told to do. They have the look of soldiers just doing the same shit they have to do every day. Anyone who's been anywhere near a military camp anywhere in the world has seen. They have that appearance. These guys definitely have a bit more of a clued up vibe about them, and they seem interested in your boat more than the rest.
Lorenz wouldn't mention this, at least not at this point. He's just noting that, like he's saying, interesting.
So, unless is there anything else that anyone else is looking for, or we're good to?
Yeah.
You're just going to go along with the.
I mean, I think that Victor would do most of the same thing, trying to gauge what these troops are like and the quality of them, and he would probably also note these people because they're quite obviously of a higher quality. And I don't know if it's
given your background, I think it would be obvious you wouldn't need to roll. There's something about how these guys hold themselves. There's an ease and comfort of their sort of position and apparent authority that they have, which you recognise. Matter of fact, you see it much in yourself and some of your own men. They have that sort of a vibe about them.
I was just gonna ask if they seem a little bit like Landsknechts, because that's what.
Although clearly not, clearly of a different culture.
Yeah.
They're not from your direction. Yeah.
Similar style of soldier, being the same.
Yes. Absolutely. But there's only a handful of them. There's only 3 of them, of which 2 of them are carrying the weaponry that I described earlier, and one of them appears to be unarmed. And they sort of seem to be overseeing what's going on down here at the docks. The soldiers that have boarded your boat are just plain old regular soldiers. As a matter of fact, they are the most state soldiery looking of all of these people, unlike the rest who are clearly mercenaries. These ones are wearing sort of livery that would suggest that they are working on the behest of some lord, although obviously the livery of or the livery of Svalsing is probably not something that any of you have much experience with, as they start unloading goods off the boat very quickly, and you can tell, no doubt, pocketing some of it as well. There seems to be an understanding between them and the crew as they take their goods off. What I will do is I will share a rough picture with you of this city, which I'll also share in the show notes. A map, as it were. Just put it onto Discord. So that there is more or less accurate. However, where you see the ferry crossing on that map, there is now, this being an older map, a rather opulent-looking bridge, again of Western design, making its way across the river at the narrow point. And you're down in the dock that's sort of opposite the lighthouse that you can see. So the dock on the sort of the eastern or northeastern bank there. The bureaucrat seems to be in a hurry to get off the docks. He's quite keen to get you to Strasbourg House, as it's known, where the local envoy is situated. So he'd definitely make a show of sort of ushering you off the boat as quickly as he can. The person who takes the longest to come off the boat is Father Hartman. He has a lot of stuff with him, and his initiates are offloading chests and bags and goods. You get the impression that Hartman does not travel particularly well.
How old is he?
Lorenzo's just watching him like, oh my god. Like, we got this guy with us.
Hartman would be... He's middle-aged, and he's at that age where it's like he could be 40 or he could be 50. You're not entirely sure. He's sitting in there somewhere. He could be a sprightly-looking 50-year-old, or he could be an older-looking 40-year-old. You know, he's sitting in there. Although he has a very clean and sort of a proper look about him, which probably would make you think he's probably in the older end of that range, as clearly he's lived a pampered life, you could say.
Does he look like his mobility is restricted in any way, shape, or form? Like, would he benefit from me going to give him a hand down the gangplank and attending to his needs of sorts?
Probably not. As a matter of fact, when he's out in public, he's clearly walking almost for show. He's aware that his position as a bishop means he has to walk with an ease and a grace. If anything, he wouldn't want to see someone like you coming and taking his hand.
How good is his act, considering he's been on a boat and we know he doesn't take the sea very well? Can we see through his act really clearly?
It's very different than it was a week ago when you saw him throwing up over the side of the boat, for sure. Definitely. He's definitely holding it together quite well. And you can tell he's been very recently refreshed and cleaned up. Probably spent most of the morning preparing to arrive.
Okay.
Cool.
Lorenz is just impatiently waiting.
So, as you sort of make your way from the docks and away from the smell and the life of the docks as well, you are sort of taken through the old town. Now, as I've sort of described to you before, Svalsing has a very imperial past. It's sort of gone through multiple sort of states of rulership and ownership and occupation, and that shows very much in the architecture. Near the docks, you have the very sort of there's a very particular ordered look where the architecture sort of is clearly being built by almost off plans. There's a certain style that is used where lots of small houses, sort of bang together, and there's a lot of these that are all around the warehouse district and things that you now make yourself through, and then you reach the core of Old Town where it's a bit more eclectic, and you've got houses that are built up and have clearly been built out. So you know how in our own history you used to have to pay rates or taxes based on the footprint of your building, so they used to build out the upper floors to give them bigger houses, but the bottom floor was sort of a smaller footprint, so they paid smaller taxes. You can tell a lot of that's going on here. There's buildings that seem to lean out over the streets, and there's lots of alleyways and nooks, and it's a myriad of chaos that is sort of presented to you as you make your way through Old Town. However, it is full of life, it is vibrant, it is a very sort of, I don't want to say well-to-do, but a comfortable area, and shows no signs of the conflict and sort of distress that you've seen in the countryside making your way to the city. The townsfolk here are clearly all free. They're not sort of beholden to any form of feudalism or anything like that. And the apart from sort of there is armed sort of patrols in the streets and things, they seem to be very free and easy, and everything seems to be normal. You make your way through quite a vibrant market where traders of various sort of cultures and things hock off their wares alongside locals selling produce that have been brought in from around the outskirts of town and stuff like that. And it's a very vibrant, thriving city centre, which again is quite at odds with what you've seen as you've made your way here. Soon though,
is there any like, as we're going through, Lorenz, if there's a conversation happening with the bureaucrat, he's only half paying attention. He's sort of trailing towards the back, trying to pick up as much passing conversation as he can. So what he's just looking out for is if there's any like complaint or disgruntlement that he can overhear as he's walking past. Like, what's the, if people are complaining about things as they are wont to do in streets and whatnot, what are they sort of complaining about? Are they mentioning the destruction in the countryside at all? Is that coming up at all, or does this seem like a complete island in the storm, so to speak?
How obviously do you all appear to be from the west?
Well,
Looking at you,
well, Victor is wearing the obvious gaudy outfit of a Landsknecht, so yes, he is very obviously Western. No question about it.
Lorenz looks like he's been briefed before coming, and so his clothes, like I've already explained, like they're pretty understated, so he fits the color palette. It's just his clothes, like the cut and things. If you looked closely, you'd be like, they don't sell that here.
right? Okay.
You'd have to look to notice that he's not. Like, maybe he's not walking the correct way. You know, he might have an air about him if you paid attention that doesn't fit. But in terms of just looking at him, he looks like he could just be a merchant from out of town.
Okay. So, yeah, people, I think especially the two mercenaries would give it away. People sort of are casting looks in your direction. And as you go past, you hear conversation turn to, you know, the church from the west. You know, Westerners, that sort of a thing. We've got, you know, more of their lot coming here with their, you know, heretical faith. That sort of stuff is going on. And there you hear the occasional comment that you need to go back across the river. That sort of a thing. There is definitely a bit of a, also like a slightly conservative vibe, and by that I don't necessarily mean politically. I mean we need to return to, it was better back in the day. It was better before they were here. You know, like before that lot come here, and now look at what's going on. You get the feeling.
What's the range of response? Is it like, does it range from just, oh yeah, more Westerners to, you know, fucking Westerners, or is it, you know, is the range less hostile than that?
It tends, yeah, it is a range. It is, for the most part, people are either indifferent or unhappy to see you. There's not very many people who are happy to see you, and when they are, it's that fake, I'm trying to sell you something happiness. That's the sort of vibe you're getting. But for the most part, it is indifference. You know, what I'm describing is very much the exceptions, the people who feel the need to discuss their views loudly, are the ones that you're hearing. And they probably want you to hear it, frankly. You know, so that's the vibe you're getting. Soon, however, you make your way towards the, let's say, more affluent parts of the city, and you're sort of here. The military presence increases. The buildings here are gaudy. They are affluent. They're over the top. Most of them are in compounds and things, and there is guards in various sort of uniforms representative of their employer at the time, and you are led to Strussland House, the home of all things Strussland here in Svelsing, at least as far as the Kaiser is concerned. You are led in, and it's going through the door is like stepping through a realm, like through a portal back to your realm. Once you go inside, there is artworks hanging from the walls that immediately remind you of home. A lot of the cultural sort of differences, the colours, the all of that sort of stuff, the things that, you know, the zeitgeist, right? The feeling in the air almost changes instantly as you walk into a place that's been very deliberately made to feel like your home. As you come in and get to be representative of your home, you are led through to a sitting room where you're instructed to sort of wait, and that you'll be seen to soon by the envoy, Adolf Kraus, who is looking forward to meeting you all. And for the first time in weeks, you have a moment where it is just you guys, and obviously the priest and his entourage, as well as
It's just
Maynard.
you few, but you're still outnumbered by the priest's entourage.
The priest entourage are mostly young. They're all male, and they're all sort of varying in age. From the youngest, you'd say, is in his sort of late teens, and the oldest would be sort of mid to late 20s. And they're clearly sort of just doing their time as his follower on and servant before they get a promotion up to something a bit more valuable within the church. They're clearly just doing their bit, and they seem largely uninterested by everything that's going on. They are just here and if they are needed. The priest, once he gets in, he sort of sits down, and he's no longer in public. He drops the air of grace and he sits down and is like, oh. And you can see he's enjoying having a proper couch, and he's like, oh, I swear, if Solaria wanted us to travel by water, he'd have given us gills. This is... He's quite enjoying getting comfortable. It's a shame they didn't feed us, though.
I'm sure you'll get your porridge or whatever it is soon. Well, none of the others are puking so much. But it'll be fine. No one saw it except us. We won't tell anybody.
Well, I don't know. He kind of looks like half the man that he was when he got in the ship in the first place.
Well, that's true, but that's Bishop's for you. He's back on God's land now, isn't he?
Yes, well, that's my fault. The communion and sea voyage is not a good mix. What shall I say?
I've got to say, Your Grace, you can't, you did better than my first go out on the boats, tell you the truth. So, I understand where you're coming from. I'm not really. Still, all these years of travel, still not used to the boats, tell you.
Is that right? You could tell. Every time he hears your voice, it doesn't line up with what he expects you to sound like.
Yes. Yes.
He's, I'm sure if we all have our places in the world, and we are given sea legs if we need them. Yes.
Yeah, we all do what we got to do to serve, the Kaiser and the church, of course.
Yes, of course, and the church.
Well, both together, I guess. That's why you and me are here.
You notice that Maynard is watching this conversation quite closely, and the priest is like, yes, the Kaiser, as anointed by his holy light, yes. We serve him as one would serve someone as appointed by the most powerful of all things.
I was glad to have you here then, You'll keep us on the straight and narrow when it comes to that.
Yes. I suspect I shall.
I'm sure your prayers and such will be most welcome on this voyage.
Well, I feel like it'll take more than prayers to fix this hellhole.
Work in progress. Work in progress.
At that point, the ambassador or envoy sort of walks in, and this is a man who, again, the stench of the bureaucrat. He is short, he is very prim and proper, and he sort of comes in, not overly dressed for that matter, sort of clearly just, in a plain white shirt and trousers, and you get a hint of sort of a perfume or a cologne that You assume must be local because it's a bit spicier than the sort of smells you're used to hear coming across back in the homeland. And he sort of walks in and he goes, yes, so welcome to Strassland House. Let us please make yourself at home. Our facilities of yours. We received a rider a number of days ago that she shall be coming, and we were to make ourselves wholly and completely available to you. And if there's anything I can do to help, please let me know. I've been here representing the homeland for a number of years now. I'm a bit of an expert, if you will, an expat, yes. How you can see he's waiting for you to sort of guide him. He's just like, the priest is like, some food would be good, sir. We're all rather famished.
Yes.
What's this guy's name?
Adolf Kraus.
Well, Adolf, has anything changed a bit since we last got set off on the voyage? We're kind of on an island of our own, you know. If there's been any updates since we departed?
Well, there's been...
But yeah, food too would be quite nice.
Yeah, he sends for food. And he sort of starts explaining that, things are rather tense here. The Svelsing's currently led by, or ruled over by Grand Prince Ivan IV. And there's been a number of insurrections around the nation that has had to be put down violently by largely a mercenary army of mercenaries from the east, which is currently keeping everything at peace. He has found that the Grand Prince has become rather cold towards the company of the ambassador. Although he'll still receive him, they don't have the sort of the warm friendship that they once have. Naturally, Adolf's concerns are all around politics. His concerns are that if things aren't smoothed over soon, and if the status quo isn't maintained, then it's only a matter of time before he's packed up and sent home, and those barbarians to the east, which he means is Nicaea, back in occupying the house. You notice that he's very careful to not mention religion. It's quite obvious. When he's talking, he doesn't mention religion. He doesn't mention, like, he says that, like the prince believes that we are meddling, but whenever he says we, he's clearly looking over towards the priest every time, that we're here meddling and that we're making things worse and all of this. And you can see he's a bit flustered by the whole state of affairs, probably because he's a man who's, you can tell he's done quite well for himself. This is a very gaudy and wealthy looking house with lots of affluence on display. He is not a noble, not a particularly high noble anyway. He's probably not a current lord, and he's done quite well for himself, and he's not liking the way things are going.
Right, but what about why we're here? You got anything about that?
Yes, yes, the Hoffman household. Well, so, as you know, the bishop and his wife, they've gone missing. They're gone. I don't know where they have gone. We were never particularly close friends. He never really let me know what was happening, but they have gone missing. They were last seen. He was last seen giving a sermon at his church, an evening sermon to the setting of Solarius, and then after that he left to went home and has not been seen again. The locals have investigated. You'll see for yourself when you go to their home. That's they had to force entry to the property and they searched it thoroughly. But beyond that, we just thought it was a priest going missing. We didn't think that this was a political issue until the rider turned up 2 days ago. And here I am trying to chase my tail and find out what's going on. I thought it best if I didn't prod too much and just let you come.
So you haven't done any prior investigation before our arrival?
No, there was a report of concern from the other priests that he'd gone missing. We asked around, that was the extent of it. As I said, the local authorities, they'd searched his property thoroughly. There's no sign of him there, no sign of where he was going, or his wife. She is also gone. Yeah.
Right, and how cooperative have the locals been? Have you been asking questions and they've been a little bit...
They are quite concerned. They've been very concerned. Thus the search of the house. They were quite thorough in their searches.
Right. I'm sure they've been very helpful. Lorenz looks very skeptical.
So, this Bishop Hoffman, did the Hoffmans have any clear political enemies? Anyone that would wish any harm to him specifically? Or do you suspect that this is an attack on the church, if it is indeed an attack on anything?
Well, enemies. Half of the city was rather not fond.
Well, I mean anyone in particular here. I don't speak about general discontent. I mean someone who was specifically trying to get rid of him.
He sort of looks over at the priest, who's sort of at this point probably tucking into some hors d'oeuvres. He's like, well, if I may be rather frank, he was what you could describe as a bit of a firebrand, a man of the people, so to say. And the issue with Svalsing is that the people are not a people, they are peoples. And here in the old city, they are a people of the East who have their own traditions and customs and long-standing beliefs. And it turns out that he was rather more appealing to the people across the river who flocked to him. Now, I am not a betting man, but if I had to choose someone or a group of people who would have a reason to want to see such a charismatic speaker to go away, the people who would benefit most from such a thing are those in the court of the Grand Prince and so. But I've asked him directly, he knows nothing of it. So I'm sure, if anything, it is... you can see he's a bit defeated. I don't know. We asked the priest to calm down and stop stirring up trouble, and, well... And he sort of just shrugs his shoulders, looking pointedly towards the priest, accompanying you, who seems anything but a firebrand.
What's Adolf's reputation amongst the service?
He's actually done a lot of good work here. Svalsing is a small, wealthy little nation, and a bit of a an important nation because it's between two powerful sort of empires. I'm sure this is something that Simon can speak to. is very much the meat on the sandwich, and he's done a good job of exploiting that well until recently, where tensions have risen. Alongside tensions at home, tensions here have risen due to the successes the church has found in adding to the flock over here.
So the point would be he's pretty competent. Like he's got a reputation for competence.
Yeah, largely.
Well, it sounds like all it's going to
Well-
take is to ask the right questions to the right people, and we might get some direction on where our good bishop has gone.
That seems to be an idea.
A man like that, you either love him or you hate him, and people are more than happy to talk about either way.
Well,
For a price.
Actually, kind of true, to be honest. You know, when it happens, you make enemies, you make friends.
I find it frankly suspicious that no one has seen anything if he has been abducted by violence. It's either been quieted down or it's
Well,
been
he might
performed
not have
very,
been.
very, very well. It's either one of the two.
I mean, there's still other things that it could be, right? He could have just gone for a wander. He could have. I mean, I hate to say it. He could have defected.
Of course.
It happens.
Now,
Sorry, Your Grace.
hierarchy-wise, our priest that's with us, how does he rate with the bishop? Higher, lower?
Yeah, he's also a bishop.
Okay.
The difference being, von Hartmann was relatively newly a bishop, and the reason he is a bishop is because he'd come over here as a missionary and had effectively set up the initial cathedral here and did such a good job that he got promoted. So he'd been working over here for a number of decades, actually. He'd come over here quite a while ago. He was once a nobleman. His family is known to have a lot of lands back in Strassland. So yeah, he sort of gave that life up to pursue, wouldn't give it up, but he left it behind to pursue, a life of piety, wanting to convert the locals here.
So this wouldn't be a post
Missionary
that
zeal.
you would go to try and further your own wealth.
No, he had no reason to further his own wealth. If anything, he is sitting on an awful lot of land. It is part of he himself, when he came over, he was the brother of the landowner. The brother has since passed away, and he inherited a lot of the land. And since he has inherited it, he has had the land sort of just handed over into the care of the church, while him and his wife sort of continue working over here. So currently the church has done quite well out of him. Not only has he come here and he has set up a new cathedral and is gaining a lot of followers in a ripe and fertile land for conversion, but he is also allowing them to reap the riches of his lands, which is a very large part of why it's important to know where he is. Otherwise, the issue of inheritance of those lands comes up, and who ends up with them is, a big deal.
One thing we can also look at to see if it is an inside job.
Well, I mean, we just got to go. Really? What people are saying on the street, if anyone's saying anything, if we can find anything in the old apartment. I mean, I wouldn't put too fine a point on it, but there was a range of people that locals could encompass. Some looked way more competent than others. It might help if we go and have a little bit of a more directed look.
Yeah, I think maybe if we go check out one of the pubs that is closest to that spot, we may be able to get the whole pot right there, the good, the bad, the ugly, and some ale to go with it.
Well, any in his congregation might have an idea. I mean, I don't know what he was preaching. If there was anything particular he was saying real recent that made someone want to have a pop at him. Maybe it was just a mugging gone wrong. I mean, if he's a bit well-to-do, they might think he's got a bit of money on him. Pop him on the head, take him in an alley, and it might have gone wrong. It could be, at this point, we don't know what it is. Could be anything. Could be in a river somewhere. It could be upriver somewhere, and we wouldn't know.
Yeah. We need to narrow down our possible areas of approach, or we will be here in...
Right, and ruling things out are as good as ruling things in. So, anything we can do, we know nothing, we know nothing. If we know something, if we know, for instance, he's not dead, then
Yeah.
it's a bloody good start.
At this point, Maynard sort of pipes up. We also must remember we're not just here to find the priest, are we? We're also looking for the wife. We need to find out where she is. Where would she be gone?
Well, if she was a dutiful wife, you could have been with them at the time.
I don't know how many ladies, and you can tell he means ladies as in social hierarchy, you have spent much time with, but dutiful is not a term I would normally use. Look, the way I see it is we need to find out where she's gone. You know that he's working for her brother, by the way, the Archduke. So we need to find where she's gone. That should be the priority here. It seems quite obvious. The priest said something he shouldn't have, as priests are wont to do, and here we are. So,
well, if it's all the same to you, I think we still got to start in the same place.
and where's that old boy?
Well, I was thinking the apartment. She was there at some point. It's her place of residence. His place of residence too. 2 birds, 1 stone. You know, we can look for both.
All right. You're smarter than you look, chap. I say that this is what we should do then. I agree. Let it be so. Klaus? And he sort of stays there. The priest is like, oh, if you're only going to the house, I might just stay here. If you could send for me when you go to the cathedral, I'd quite like a look, but I wouldn't want to get in the way of the professionals.
You sit there and have your tea or whatever you're drinking.
I mean, it looks like he's already got a congregation in front of him. Don't want to disturb him at his mass.
Victor doesn't give a shit. He doesn't want this guy with him anyway. So,
Yeah, Laura's pretty happy that he's already volunteered to
Yeah.
stay behind. He didn't want him.
I don't want to go investigating the possible disappearance of or rather, the actual disappearance of a bishop with a bishop in my company. That's not very useful. So yes, fine.
Yeah, recipe for disaster. Bet I've got Maynard with him, or I hate already.
Yeah.
Well done, Liam. I already hate him.
Good. So, good. So yeah, Adolf is he gets someone to sort of take you away and go have a look at at least. Oh, hold on. Would you expect Adolf to come with you? Because he could accompany
No.
you. No.
No.
Okay. He gets the same underling to sort of accompany you off to sort of the priest's house, the priest's residence. The underling, we'll call him Frederick. He sort of leads you along. He's sort of just like a general helper, one of the sort of manservants of Strassland House. So he's basically, Adolf makes it clear to Frederick that he is to make himself as useful to you all as he can be, really, and just to avail himself to you. Do you wanting to go directly to the house? Is there anything you want to go look at first, or anything you want to?
What time of day are we looking at right now?
You would have arrived late in the morning, so now it's about midday.
And we've had
Yeah, we
lunch.
got time.
Yeah.
I would say let's head right there.
Yeah.
Cool.
No time like the present.
So yeah, the priest lives in a quite a wealthy part of town. It is still the same sort of eclectic architecture that I described earlier, where it sort of expands outwards to the street. And he does live like on a junction where there is naturally like a bit of a small market popped up, but it's not as cluttered and it's not as rowdy or busy as Old Town was that you were in earlier. You are led to a house which is, sort of 2 stories tall, The bottom floor is made of stacked bricks or stone, and then above them is like a whitewashed sort of and black wooden framed floor, which sort of, as I said, leans out over the street. And next to it, next to the front door, is a plaque stating the name of the occupants. And the front door, you can see, has clearly been forced open. Although there is a sign written in like charcoal underneath underneath the name, saying "in the protection of this sort of, under the protection of the what's his name, the Grand Prince." So basically telling locals not to come in. But the front door is unlockable at the moment. It's been forced open. Frederick goes, "Right, here you go. This is ours. I'll just stay out here, I want to go in there. It's all worth a bit too much money for me."
Lorenz gives him an appreciative nod. You see anything? Just give us a gander.
Right, we'll do. It's
probably share a knowing look at each other.
It's a very well-to-do house. Just looking outside it, you can tell it is a rich house. Apart from the door, which has been forced open, there is no sign of damage or forced entry that you can see at a basic glance anyway.
Well, Lorenzo's walking around the outside, looking at the windowsills, looking at the frontage of the property, fencing. If there's any sign of like someone jumping in, somebody climbing, somebody jimmying a window. He's looking for that sort of thing.
Okay, the house is one of these ones that's built up to the house next to it, so you can't get down the sides.
Right.
It only has a frontage, and the frontage is a number of windows, all of which seem to be secure. That said, we're not talking particularly state-of-the-art multi-glaze housing, so it wouldn't have been hard to get in if they want to, but as far as you can tell, there's no sign of jimmying or anything like that. Make me a spot roll, if you will.
I shall. 16. Fail.
Okay. Yeah. You're pretty sure there's no sign of anything, but you're not confident that you could have missed something.
Not the most secure looking house to begin with.
Yeah.
At least from the outside.
Question, unless I'm interrupting. This Fyodrik guy, the way you would interpret his action of not joining us into the house, would that be him showing that he's not spying on us for the ambassador? Like being like something you could take as sort of, oh yes, I'm here with you, but I'm not gonna be looking at your every move. Like they're trying to be polite about not doing that. Or would
probably an element of that, but you believe there is some truth in what he said of just wanting to stay away from the money. Don't want to be in it. This is a man who he's got a cushy position. He's earning more money than a man of his birth should, and he's not in a hurry to risk that by being accused of stealing something. So he's just learnt to stay away from nobles' houses.
It makes perfect sense. Just wanted to make it clear.
Yeah.
That was the knowing look shit.
Yeah, he knows when something's above his pay grade. It's basically the vibe you got. But no doubt there is an element of him also wanting to be seen to give you room to do your thing.
Yeah.
And also it's helpful to have a look out.
That is also very useful, yes.
Just in case. Yeah. If nothing else, the scream will be an alarm bell.
So the street here, like I said, it's not super noisy, unlike when you were going through Old Town and there was clatter and yelling and all that sort of stuff. Here it's mostly a relatively civil market. There is people announcing their wares and things. It's just one of those markets that just naturally pops up at street junctions and things. So it's sort of like the sort of things that you'd need daily, food and stuff like that. You can tell it's all temporary too. It clearly gets packed away at night, and it is all rather well to do. Matter of fact, you notice that the fruit here and the vegetables and things, the produce, is noticeably better quality than when you're in Old Town, but it's also it seems to be 2 or 3 times higher value as well. And yeah, the people here are not pushing their wares particularly hard. Most of the people who are shopping aren't also the homeowners; they're the staff of the homeowners.
Right, well, Freddy's got the front, so might as well head inside. Can't see anything particular out here.
Cool. The door hangs on its hinges. You can tell that it's been kicked in with the way that the actual locking mechanism has cracked right next to the handle where a boot's clearly been put. And as you make your way inside, it is this turmoil. There is furniture strewn everywhere. Cutlery is strewn everywhere. The place has been tossed. The smell of spices from the kitchen sort of assaults your senses as someone has clearly just gone through and tossed the whole thing. The place is absolute sort of pandemonium as you go inside. It's not a massive house. It's clearly very well to do, but it's like an inner city sort of upper middle class or upper class house, as opposed to like a standalone mansion. So as you come through the door, there's like a bit of a waiting room. Then you go through to like the kitchen and scullery at the back. There's a dining room, a large sort of sitting room, and then there's stairs leading up to an upper story at the end of the waiting room.
Is it the kind of place that you'd expect would have permanent or part-time staff?
Quite possibly.
Or is it the kind of place that
it seems to have provisions for such, but there's no sign of anyone if that is the case.
So the provisions look disused.
Yeah, and also it's hard to say because the place has been tossed, pictures have been torn off the walls and things like that. You can tell that this place has been searched aggressively and searched in a way that you probably wouldn't search if you were looking for a person. There's no need to look behind
and probably searched in a way as also to potentially say, oh, we searched the place, and in the process any evidence has been removed and they won't be able to figure it out.
Quite possible.
Lorenz is looking at it going, oh yeah, locals have really done a good bloody job here. Which actually tells us quite a lot, to be honest.
What I will say is you do pick up that for such an opulent house, the decorations or what remains of them are rather toned down. So you can tell that the father was probably a humble man or trying to live. It's a weird dichotomy.
He's a rich man. He's a rich man trying to live humbly, but can't because he doesn't actually really know what that looks like.
He's accustomed to a certain level of comfort, and also he made the decision to become a priest. His wife probably didn't. So between the two of them, you can tell that it's like this is a very nice house and a very nice neighborhood, but he was living pretty threadbare here. But the furniture is still very good quality. Everything is still good quality, although it's all smashed. The place is just tossed. You haven't gone upstairs yet, but just let me know if there's anything in particular that you're looking for. My thinking is if you have skills over a certain level and you describe what you're doing in a way that the skill would be relevant, then I won't bother to get you to roll. Whereas if it's a more generalized description, I'll get you to roll, if that makes sense.
I'm looking downstairs to see if everything's generally in a state of chaos, but I'm looking for a place that looks particularly like if someone was trying to smash the place, they focused way more time here than anywhere else. Like almost because I'm thinking there's potentially a cover up, so I'm looking to see if there's been anything covered up, right? Like because if I was to toss a place to make sure there's no evidence, I'd be like, okay, so do a bunch in the lounge, a bunch in the kitchen, but if I murdered someone in the dining room, I'm going to make that place look even worse. So
you're looking for a lot of mess.
Yeah, like it's sort of if someone spent most of their time trashing this particular spot.
Okay. It seems to, again, I'm assuming that you're only on the ground floor, but on the ground floor, it seems to be that everything is more or less uniformly been destroyed. That said, there is a drawing room or an office that you notice bookshelves have been bookcases have been sort of tossed to the ground. Books are everywhere. The place is a mess. There's ink stains all over the floor where like writing equipment's been swept off the table. The tables, the desk for that matter, has been overturned. You can see marks on the walls where pictures were hanging where they've been removed and thrown off, checked behind, things like that.
Yeah, and this is a study, right, essentially?
Yes.
So if someone wanted to seize writings or documentation, I'm guessing there's a safe somewhere, and there might be a safe here that's been opened, or
you don't find any signs of a safe.
but if he was, yeah, okay, yeah. So this does definitely starts looking more like, to my character's mind, the Grand Prince Ivan has definitely had instructions beyond just search the place. There's probably been, and if you find anything, you got any documents, make sure to turn them over. Which at this stage you wouldn't know whether that's normal statecraft or whether that's particularly ominous. But yeah, if there's nothing else on the ground floor, he'd sort of head back, stepping over the remains of furniture.
What about the rest of you? What are you guys looking for down here?
Victor.
I'd be heading upstairs while he was downstairs.
Okay. Victor.
Victor would use his background as a servant to think about this for a moment, because he wants to talk to the servants who might have worked here. And what he is thinking is that he wants to go talk to the sellers out in the street, because if anyone else would know where the servants have gone, it would be those people that we could find. So he's probably going to go talk to those people. Because his thinking is that they are probably relatively friendly, because they are people who they go to and they talk to them often when they buy food stuff. They come back, and they've probably done that for a while. So they might have seen or heard anything about where they've gone, if they're not here at all. That's what he's gonna do. The logic seems relatively solid to anyone else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just imagining the picture of you stalking into this house and your mercenary hire with all you dripping and wet with weapons, turning around immediately, walking out and just staunching over towards some merchant.
Actually, that reminds me, when you were at Strassland House, one thing that Adolf would have pointed out is that currently there is an order for the general populace to not be armed on the streets with anything larger than a dagger or a knife. So, that being said, how you guys, to an extent, have some diplomatic immunity, I guess. How much do you want to push that?
I think that Victor will not disarm entirely. He will still have his arming sword. He would not give that away on any occasion if he didn't have to.
The exceptions are, soldiers acting in the interests of the state, and the nobility are the exceptions to the current law.
Loren's arming sword is probably with his belongings back at Strassland House. But he's got his
You're kind of acting in the interest of the state, Victor. Kind of.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
If you got a lawyer, you can argue.
This is just the thing as well. I would probably not be carrying around the two-handed sword that is enormous everywhere I go anyway. So
I'm imagining you're not wearing plate armor either.
No. If anything, I'm maybe wearing the breastplate and nothing else, just to show that I'm a soldier. But I wouldn't be wearing the helmet or anything like that. That's stupid. Yep. So yeah. Kind of like that. He's wearing this Katzberger thing, which is sort of a heavy, broad arming sword. But,
okay, that's fine. I will point out that Maynard, being a member of the nobility, as soon as he heard that, felt no need to disarm at all. He wears quite a thin sword, like a side sword that's quite sort of long and thin, like we're pre-rapier era, but you can tell it's one of the ancestors of the rapier.
Yeah.
And a sword breaker as well. And he also carries around a pistol. So he generally, it's all quite tidy and respectable looking shit anyway. It sort of fits his attire. So he wears it a bit better than, say, Lorenz would, who would be obviously armed, if that makes sense. Okay, so you go out and head across the road to talk to the people over there, and we've got Veronica heading upstairs. So I'll cut to Veronica first. Okay, so Veronica heads upstairs. Upstairs is much the same as down below. It's been tossed. There is 2 main bedrooms, both of which have been tossed. One of them is in a much higher state of opulence, or once was in a much higher state of opulence than the other, although now that opulence is scattered and spread all across the floor. And the other one is a very humble room with just a bed, side stand, and chest for clothing, with the clothing strewn everywhere and the chest tipped over. And then other than that, upstairs is just another sort of sitting area, like a landing at the top of the stairs. Following you upstairs is Maynard, who comes upstairs, looks at goes over, just pokes his head into the austere room, and immediately turns around and goes over towards the other one.
So is it safe to assume that the clothing that is strewn around in the 2 rooms, one would belong to his wife, the other to him?
The austere room, the more plain of the 2, has male clothing strewn everywhere. The other one has no clothing, or very little clothing anyway.
Is there any women's clothing that can be seen?
All what little clothing remains, it's just mostly undergarments and things like that, small bits and pieces, is all feminine, yes.
But nothing larger like skirts, tops?
No. There is certainly storage for such things, but there is no sign of a lot of that stuff. There is bits and pieces, but you can tell that primary stuff has sort of been removed, or at some point is gone. You see Maynard is now himself tossing what's remained of the tossed stuff while he's looking for any sign of where Frida has gone.
Any jewelry or anything, or is that gone as well?
There's no jewelry at all. It's hard to say if that it's hard to say when that went missing, but at some point the jewelry is gone.
I mean, there was no guard out the front.
Yeah. You see,
there was some charcoal markings. That was it.
Yeah. You see Maynard sort of pick up the bed base with the mattress has already been cast aside, and sort of look underneath. He draws a dagger and slices open the mattress and sort of starts pulling feathers out, searching through the mattress. He's quite thoroughly himself searching this room.
I'll call over to him. Anything in there?
Not yet. We don't know where the old girl's gone to. We'll find her. Looks like it wasn't all paradise in the marriage, though.
No, it looks like whatever happened to her happened with some forethought.
It's all very interesting, isn't it?
Indeed.
So what are you doing in the room, apart from talking to him?
Would there be like a wardrobe with drawers or anything that were still in place, or is all that on the floor?
It's all tossed. The whole thing. The place has been fucking trashed. And then as you watch Maynard search the place, you can see that he is trashing what little is left that hasn't been trashed in his search. There's definitely...
Anything that is on the floor, I'll kind of move it a little bit, and if I don't see anything kind of tumble out or catch my eye, I'm going to try and get everything pushed to the perimeter of the room to see if this mess is hiding anything like bloodstains or any kind of signs of struggle. Like, I'm assuming that there's carpets below, like a rug or something.
There's a rug, yep.
Yeah, so like not floor to floor. Maybe get him to help me move the frame once he's done plucking the mattress to see if we can roll the carpet up to see if there's anything hiding underneath. Any signs of struggle that may be hidden by the upending of the room itself.
Sure. Yeah, you sort of help him move some bits and pieces around. He helps you move. He's quite keen to. Sort of as you're doing this, we'd assume that Lorraine starts coming up the stairs as well.
I'm imagining I can hear the ruckus upstairs. And you just see like this sort of exasperated sigh. God damn it. Is anything up there? It's not up there to be seen now.
You move the bed frame, and you can see that there is a rug underneath, and the rug has imprints on it, and you can tell that underneath the bed there was something heavy, not particularly large, maybe the size of like computer screen, if you will. Not that your character knows that, but what that is. But sort of a large box size thing, square imprint. So you move things around and you start kicking around and you find a small metal lockbox, which is open with the key still inside, and no contents.
I will kind of take that, pick it up, look it over, see if there's anything that can be spotted, and toss it to Lorenz as I see him coming through the door.
Probably don't catch it. It probably just hits me, and I go, and it just hits me and falls to the floor with a clatter. And I look down, see what it is. Look into the room, see Maynard just trashing the place. Wow, it fits with the theme going on down here. Can't really rule anything out at this stage still. No sign of a struggle.
No, which kind of makes you believe that this was almost a planned escape.
Well, I ain't ruling anything out. Escape or no, all I got out of this is the state's done a bang up job covering their tracks if they're doing things, or else they're just taking the opportunity to toss someone from out of state and make some money and get some intelligence.
I think you're probably right on both counts.
Can't rule anything out yet. I mean, could be right on both, could be wrong on one, could be right on... Yeah, I already said. Any attic up here? Do you see any attic entrance up here?
And you what, sorry? You're kind of quiet again.
Got any attic access up here? Or nah?
Are you looking for an attic access in the bedroom?
Yeah. No, just in general, but I would look in here as well.
As you look at the ceiling above where the bed was, you can actually see there is an icon painted onto the ceiling, looking down over the bed. It is a large sun, it seems, with beams radiating down from it, and a very stern face painted across the face of the sun. Where you come from, suns are normally presented, because they're a religious icon, suns are normally presented as a circle with 8 beams coming from it in an equal pattern, and what you're looking at would actually be classed as blasphemy, just because it's a false icon of the sun.
Would everyone know that?
It depends on how religious you are, but people generally know not to. It's much like how you don't draw pictures of Muhammad in our world. You don't draw pictures of the sun.
So that's something that...
Well, that bloody... Well, yeah, I'm like, well, that would be bloody typical. Look at that. Point of the roof. ceiling.
So it's it's like a round sun. You know it's a sun because it's yellow or gold, actually. And it's got beams coming down out of it that almost form like a triangle shape, although they don't have a base. It's just beams radiating out, so sort of they all lead up to the sun at the top. And then there is the stern face looking down to where you would be if you were in bed.
Imagine staring at that when you wake up. Actually, does that look recently painted, or is that? I don't know. Give us a boost there, Veronica.
Actually, Maynard will step over and offer to give you a boost. He's a tall man, so he doesn't need to give you much of a boost.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to call him
Lorenz
over.
is shorter than average.
So he goes, "What's this old girl up to?" And he offers to give you a lift up.
Right, just steady. Yeah, and I'll jump on his, I'm guessing to do the hold the hand thing. And then I'd sort of give the icon a close look, see if it looks relatively fresh, like if there's any dust on it or cobwebs, or if it smells, the paint smells fresh, anything like that.
It's not fresh as in it's been done recently. However, it's clearly not as old as the rest of the house. You know what I mean? Like, it looks like something which could have been done within the last year or two, but it's not something which has been done in the last couple of weeks since this whole thing kicked off. Last month or so. Yeah.
Right, cheers, Maynard. Well, that ain't recent, but it ain't that old either. Wonder if there's one in the old man's room. And I'd quickly drop out and head into the other. I wouldn't have seen it yet.
Yep.
But
We at this point we'll cut back out to the street where Victor's crossing the road and making his way over to some of the merchants. They look up and go, Sir, may we please sell you some leeks? I've got leeks for sale. Would you like to buy a leek?
You could give me a leak. No, he doesn't do that. He says something to the effect of yes, of course, and he goes forth. Are these merchants in the sense of actual merchants, or are they more like pole sellers?
Street side vendors.
Yeah, okay, so they're more like working class people. So, what Victor actually does here is he approaches in this very sort of macho fashion with his Landsknecht gear and all that, and probably looks quite imposing. But when he does talk to these people, he actually switches his accent up quite a bit, and he talks to them in the type of way that you would talk to someone who's actually been a servant before, because he spent quite a bit of time doing that. And he starts asking relevant questions that are actually useful. I don't know which these questions are. And then he tries to ingratiate himself a little bit. And after talking for a while, we'll try to ask some pertinent questions toward the investigation, like where maybe the servants are, because they must have seen what happened. This is quite weird, and it's just outside the house, and probably someone has broken in here, so there must have been something, right? That sort of thing.
Yeah, he the merchant you're talking to, they describe that that there is definitely a couple of servants that used to work in that house. They weren't living; they were only there during the day. But they obviously haven't been around for the last few weeks. One of them, no one knows where that one's gone. Which is, I mean, because why would they? The need to come to work no longer exists, right? And the other one has actually started working as they're basically like a cook / maid, kitchen hand sort of thing, nearby at another house, and they still see them in the market on the regular, and they give you instructions on where to find them. It's like, it's quite exciting what's going on there. Do you know anything about it? Like, what's happening?
Well, that's what we're trying to find out here. because it's quite obvious that we're here to do it. Like, there's no reason to obfuscate why we're here when you're obviously trying to investigate it.
Yeah.
But he will say, yeah, we're trying to find it out. And he will actually buy a leak as a friendly gesture.
Just one, a singular leak.
I mean, leaks are pretty big, right?
Yeah. Depends on what you want to do with them. I like leeks.
Might use it as plumage on your hat. You know.
Might add it to the hat now, yeah.
No, he that's all
Don't
good.
smell fresh leeks.
Yeah, we won't worry about money. You get yourself a leak, and
take a leak.
Yeah, and they've pointed you in a direction to go to. They said you could always ask around some other people around here, although most people in the market have like the actual market stall sellers, and they don't know really what's going on. But you can tell it's been the center of gossip here for some time. Naturally, like why did that house get kicked in? What's going on? All that sort of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, that was sort of what Victor was going for anyway, just trying to find the regular gossip about this, because it's obviously something you would talk about when it happens just across the street.
Yeah.
Someone's been turning the entire place over, and someone disappeared a few weeks ago. I mean, I know these kinds of folks, they do this all the time. But yeah, at this point, I don't think I would go over to that person immediately. I would probably rejoin the group and tell them that I found a possible witness or contact.
Well, yeah, you come up the stairs as you see Lorenz makes his way across the landing and into the priest room, which itself has been tossed, but there's a lot less in here to toss. There is, very modest clothing everywhere, priestly garb, tossed around and stuff like that as well. When I say priestly garb, the Church of Solaria is very Catholic in that they have quite gaudy outfits, lots of gold thread and things like that. You look at the ceiling, it's just a regular old ceiling. There is no images like that at all. What you do find amongst the mess is like a bronze 8-pointed sun that you're used to seeing, like a religious icon that you find on the ground, which is clearly was once hanging on the wall, quite possibly over the bed.
And there's nothing scrawled on the ceiling? No paintings? No markings on the floor?
No.
Did it... Oh, well, I wouldn't have seen it, so I can't ask. Or did you point out the strange Orthodox imagery on the ceiling to Victor?
I mean, I'm in a different room, so...
Forget it.
At some point, I guess if you're just looking in around the corner, I'd look like, oh, nice of you to join us. See the leak, I'm like, oh, I didn't think this was time for shopping.
When you get some information from somebody who buys something from the stall, that's just common practice. You're wasting their time. And this is clearly
did you get a leak, or did you get a leak?
And this is clearly a thing that I would think most people would have got. It's like a little bit weird. It's just that because he has this background, he wants to be nice to these people, and it sort of goes against what you would expect from a mercenary captain. So it is a little bit weird. He's just standing around with a leak. But there it is.
But yeah, Lorenz would just say, did you get a leak, or did you get a leak?
Victor looks annoyed at you. doesn't carry on that conversation. But yes, what have you found out?
No, I mean, did you get any information?
Yes, we did find.
That's what I'm asking.
We did find something. There seems to be some cook, or that was working at this house. Might have been found. They are working at a different house close by. Might be able to talk to that person. Find out some more.
Right. Well, in here, it's a bit of a pig's breakfast, mate. We can't really rule anything out, though we found one interesting piece. I'd have to use the B word, a bit of blasphemy on the ceiling in the wife's room. Not in here, mate, in the wife's room.
Speaking of, when you go to the wife's room to look at said blasphemy, you see Maynard drawing that image onto a notebook he's got with him with a bit of charcoal. And he's making careful effort to recreate it.
There's something you knew about Maynard?
No, old boy. There's something you know about?
So, and as I walk into this room and I see this image, does it look like it's something that would have been hid at any point? Or does it just look like it would always be apparent that it's there if you looked?
So the ceiling has got beams running across it, and it's between these beams. So unless you were underneath it and looking up, it's a high ceiling. It's not like centerpiece in the ceiling too, it is directly over the bed. So it is in such a way that it's not hidden, it's not at all hidden. However, it is not readily apparent either. You'd have to, like if you were lying in bed and looking straight up, you'd see it. If you walked into the room and looked up, you'd see it. But how often do you look up at your ceiling?
That's what I was thinking, especially when it's
Yeah,
like
I mean, I have a similar
not in
thought.
your
Like if it would be a like relatively flat ceiling with nothing on it, it would be very, very obvious that it's there. But like with this sense, it's obviously a little bit hidden, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
without actually having to say that it's hidden. It's just, well, that's just where I...
Yeah.
I'm thinking that it didn't share the lady's bed that much.
That much is obvious.
Well, I mean, they could, and there's been some words spoke, but you know, servants might have heard something.
Yes. I'd prefer not to pass judgment before we can talk to the cook, but they probably know more about this than we will. From the idle gossip.
Maybe you can trade the leak to the cook for something.
You see, I always have a plan, Lawrence.
That's
Anyway.
right, old boy. A man with a plan, are we?
Yes. Obviously. It's not like I just thought of this now. Looks a little bit. But there it is. And, anyway, we'll have to go talk to them. This is mighty suspicious.
Well, I mean, it's something else to look into, really. Another lead. And leads are good in this business.
So, is there anything else to indicate in what we know about this lady that she could have been some sort of convert to the other faith? I guess we would have to find them.
I mean, Maynard, what you got about, you know, correspondence with the old folks back home? Do you mention any of this sort of thing?
No. In fact, she was rather estranged, is my understanding. Things were not so warm between her and her brother, but not so warm between her and her husband either, so where there's smoke.
Well, mate, I'll make a crack about shedding some light, but I see too much sun in here already.
Maynard appreciates the pun. That's how much of a piece of shit he is. He appreciates puns.
My opinion of Maynard's changed drastically.
Yeah, so once he's finished drawing it, he sort of puts the notebook away. He doesn't seem to think there's much more to find. Clearly the place has been ransacked. Anything of value's gone. Stuff like that. So he heads outside.
Any sign of a cellar?
Look,
there is a small sort of cellar in the kitchen area, like in the is it the scully they call them? Like
Scullery?
Scullery. You used to go. There is a cellar off there. Again, it's been tossed. It's been tossed all over.
Leaks everywhere.
And actually, like the smell of like food and stuff that's been left here, like because it's been like several weeks at this point, it smells bad. It's not a pleasant place to be. Yeah.
I'm sort of mapping. I've walked around the place once, and I've seen the outside and the neighboring properties. So I'm trying to gauge whether the dimensions sort of line up with what I saw outside.
Oh, they seem to.
Of the house.
They absolutely seem to.
Yeah.
Now what about fireplace, cook stove, anything along those lines?
Yeah, there's plenty of them. It's one of those places that has multiple fireplaces.
I would go around taking a peek inside all of them.
All of them?
All of them.
They all seem pretty fireplacey. They all seem to align with sort of what you'd expect.
How many of them contain bits and pieces that would look like bone and teeth?
None. No sign of bone or teeth, or for that matter, burnt paper. They all seem pretty stock standard. Good old-fashioned fireplaces used for warm houses, so all cooked food.
Suspicious
With
lot.
that, I'll...
Go on.
Suspicious lot, this spies and assassins.
When you head outside, Frederick...
What do you mean spy? I'm just a diplomat. That's all I am. Just a diplomat.
When you head outside, Frederick seems to have has wandered over next door, where he seems to be leaning against the wall and talking to someone who looks like she may be a local servant girl. He's clearly trying his best on her.
Lorenz scowls when he sees that. Mumbles under his breath. I thought they bloody taught him better than this. Oh, by the way, Victor, when you're chatting to your friend over there, did you ask about if he was there when the place got tossed by the locals? See if they carried anything off when they left?
Didn't seem like they had anything particular to say. It was just regular old gossip.
Well, I mean... Alright.
I mean, yeah, I probably would have asked, but I didn't. I didn't specifically.
Yeah, they didn't really talk about it too much. There's a lot of curiosity about what's going on, and not a lot forthcoming about. Obviously, everyone has their theories, right? No doubt that they'll probably all got an idea of what happened, but I imagine none of it's true.
Yeah, the idea I had was that it would be mostly idle gossip and people looking at these weird people smashing up the place and being like, that's none of my business, but I will talk about it though. Which is what people generally do.
Frederick, when he sees you guys come outside, he sort of says something to the girl, and he sort of like whistles. Puts his fingers in his mouth and whistles and ushers you over. And as you come over, he's like, "Go on, tell me what you told me." And she's suddenly quite shy or bashful as you come up. Intimidated maybe by the big scary knightly looking guy, who knows, but she suddenly has that look of someone who has something to do and I have to go be busy. He's like, "Oh, come on, don't be like that." And she's sort of starting to, "Oh, no, I must get back to work." He's like, what if look, this fella here," and he points over towards just the group in general, "he's got a couple of coins he could flip ya. Maybe that will, buy a bit of your time." And she lingers for a moment. Alright,
Freddie, what you got?
She sort of sitting around all awkwardly. It's like, look, you gotta, look, I'm trying to do you a favor, mate. Look, give the girl some money, right?
I'm telling you, Free, if this is just a ploy to get your lady some fresh action and she's going to sell us a bloody fish, I ain't going to be bloody happy.
Fucking hell, Lawrence. And Victor just throws some coins.
Hand over a couple of coins. You just throw coins?
No, I mean, I hand them some coin and look at you like, this is not a problem. And then we're doing Fyodor a favor here anyway. Go on.
She's like, well, I work here. I live here. I work here. And there was an awful lot of crashing and banging when this all happened. And she sort of indicates next door. It woke us all up. And the next day, when the guards came to have a look, they were in and out in no time, wrote their sign on the door, and they were gone. It was all rather exciting. Yes, right, babe. Pretty exciting.
So how long were the guards here? How long were the guards here for?
In and out, a couple of minutes.
Right, and you say woke you up in the middle of the night.
Right, and I spoke to Vlad. He's the knightsman. He said there was some man standing outside while the banging was going on and telling everyone to mind their own business, and it was all a bit. It was all a bit odd.
Right. And what was the description of that man out front? What he sound like? Sound local?
And she sort of points towards Victor. Like him?
Well, he wearing a bit of a sash.
You can see she's sort of thinking, and she looks at the coins in her hand.
I would like to see if she's playing, if she's performing, like if she's putting on a performance to try and sell us something that she thinks we want to hear. I think that might be a praise.
Praise. You've got pretty good at praise. She looks.
This is what my character's supposed to do.
She looks genuinely scared.
But with what she's telling us, does she seem like she's embellishing? It's all right, love. I've seen those sorts. I mean, at the moment, we're just having a little chat. Just give me a bit of a nod or a shake if they were wearing anything distinctive, like a sash, for instance.
She sort of looks up and down the street, and then sort of nods as she steps through the door into the house to leave you all out in the street.
I think it would be best if you yelled at us to leave you alone for a bit.
She just closes the door.
Alright. Yeah, that's a little bit less suspicious, but more business, I guess.
Always got away with the ladies, don't you, Lorenz?
I feel like you've said this to me in other campaigns too, Veronica. Seems to be a recurring line.
So it's not character based.
Well, you know.
No, as someone who knows Sean in person, I can say this with authority. No. So, Fred's like, how's that, eh? That's a lead? That's a lead?
Yeah, it is. Right.
I mean, it's starting to fill out one of the working theories we got going, but I ain't talking about that in this.
Yeah. Could everybody please roll me a streetwise check as opposed? Just tell me what you get.
What is it?
17.
It's a fail.
Yeah, this is a skill I should put more into.
There's no crit fumbles in this, Liam.
Did you roll a 1?
Yes, I did roll a 1. I like how my 1s equal 13. Natural 1 is a 13, so it's like...
Okay. Yeah, no, there is nothing to see here.
I succeeded.
You succeed, no, but the question is how high did you get? In an opposed roll, it's you match 2 numbers against each other.
I rolled a 19 and my skill is 5.
Okay. The street seems like a busy, bustling street. Nothing stands out as needing attention. Beyond, obviously, the kicked-in house.
Well, nothing more to see here.
What's the plan from here? What's your next step? Look, maybe now's a good time to discuss what clues we've found thus far and where we intend to go next.
Let's head to a pub to discuss this.
All right.
Yeah, sure, fine. Akenkrantz can have a stiff drink. He's been hanging out with Maynard all too much today.
Maynard's coming to the pub.
I know, but at least I can get slightly drunk.
And that concludes this episode. Thank you for listening to Valley of Blood. If you like what you've heard and you would like to hear more, please head to mbcast.co for all things Mud and Blood related. We would like to thank Dan Heim for allowing us to use his music for the theme song of this show, as well as some of the atmosphere heard in the episode, as well as story blocks and tabletop audio for much of the sound effects and remaining music. We will be back with episode 2 in 2 weeks' time, so be sure to tune in. Until then, Airera.